long before telescopes, before glass, before mirrors. There was only a desert, a shepherd, and a sky so thick with stars it dripped light like honey. One night, curious about the faint smear near Orion's belt, that shepherd pressed a seashell to his eye. The curve of nacre bent the starlight just so. And in that accidental lens, the universe whispered its first secret. Tonight, we follow that whisper through time, from Galileo's trembling hands polishing forbidden lenses in a Paduan attic, to Hubble's fractured mirror floating in silent space, to the James Webb's golden eye, now capturing starlight older than Earth itself. You need only lie back, dear dreamer, and let these stories carry you as gently as light rides the curves of space-time. The night was darker then. No city glow, no humming wires, just the black velvet of eternity pierced by countless silver needles. Somewhere in Mesopotamia, a shepherd lay on his back in the dry grass, his flock sleeping nearby. He didn't know it yet, but his fingers, tracing patterns between the brightest lights, were writing humanity's first love letter to the cosmos. The stars moved differently back then, not because the universe has changed, but because our eyes have grown weary. To ancient Babylonians, Venus wasn't just a planet. She was a goddess keeping perfect time. Every 8 years, like clockwork, she returned to the same point in the sky. Her dance so precise, they set their calendars by her movements. Imagine knowing a celestial body so intimately you could predict its path centuries into the future. All without lenses or equations. Just patience, just watching, night after night, generation after generation, until the rhythm of the heavens became as familiar as your own heartbeat far across the world. Polynesian navigators sailed vast oceans, guided by star paths worn into memory like grooves in old wood. They called it star crawling, reading the sky as we might read a map, feeling their way across the Pacific by the tilt of constellations. To them, the Milky Way wasn't abstract astronomy. It was the backbone of the night, a glowing trail home. They could sense land beyond the horizon by how starlight bent over unseen shores, long before optics explained why. And then there were the stones. Great hulking monoliths dragged across hillsides, aligned with solstice sunrises. At Stonehenge, at Newgrange, at Chankilla, the world over, our ancestors built stone calendars to mark the sky's slow breathing. The summer solstice sun still slides between those ancient pillars, exactly as it did 4,000 years ago. A beam of light touching altars where priests once chanted to the dawn. We found their tally marks notches in bone or wood counting. Lunar cycles proof they measured time in moonbeams long before clocks existed. What did they feel, those first astronomers, when they realized the stars followed rules? That behind the chaos of twinkling lights lay order, predictability, a rhythm, as steady as the tide. Perhaps the same quiet awe you feel now, listening to this story in the dark. The same comfort in knowing that although empires rise and fall, although we've gone from stone circles to space telescopes, those original constellations, Sirian, Ursa Major, the Southern Cross remain unchanged. The same stars that guided the first stargazers still watch over us tonight. Sleep comes easier when you remember you're lying beneath the same sky that cradled all of humanity. It's the same infinite dark that first sparked the question, what's out there? Now close your eyes and let the stars keep watch a while. ... A drop of molten glass fell from the craftsman's pipe onto the packed earth, its surface hardening into a perfect curve as it rolled. Nearby, a scribe squinted at his parchment, the letters blurring as his aging eyes betrayed him. Neither man knew that their frustrations, one manipulating sand into fragile waves, the other struggling against time's slow theft of sight, would collide centuries later in a revolution that would change our view of the universe forever. The story of glass is written in accidents. Phoenician sailors building beach fires on blocks of natron, shocked to find transparent pools where flame met sand. Mesopotamian potters marveling at mysterious shiny coatings from overheated kilns for thousands of years. These fragile artifacts served as decorations or trinkets until one forgotten Venetian artisan held a shard at arm's length and noticed, with heart-stopping astonishment, how it magnified the veins of a leaf dot. By the 13th century, monasteries echoed with the quiet complaints of aging scholars. Manuscripts were precious. Candlelight was poor. Then came the lapides, ad legendam stones for reading. These hand-blown glass hemispheres, pressed against vellum, could stretch cramped script into clarity. Their makers noticed something curious. Thicker curves magnified better, but only if polished on both sides. The most skilled glassblowers learned to shape the molten silica like taffy, creating lenses that worked like magic, or perhaps divine intervention. Meanwhile, the desert cities of the Islamic world, scholars were unraveling light's secrets. Alhazen's Book of Optics, 1021 AD, proved vision didn't come from our eyes emitting rays, as Aristotle claimed, but from light entering them. His diagrams showed how a sphere of glass could bend sunlight to a burning point, an idea that would simmer for centuries before igniting the Renaissance. By 1280, spectacles appeared in Pisa, their awkward frames balancing on sweaty noses across Italy. For the first time, human biology had been technologically enhanced. The real revolution came quietly, in dim workshops lit by olive oil lamps. Spectacle makers began combining lenses. Convex lens paired with a concave one didn't just magnify inverted images with startling clarity. Stories spread of wondrous perspective glasses that could make distant church spires appear within reach. But it was in the Netherlands, where lenses were ground for mercantile telescopes used by spice traders spotting ships, that the final leap occurred. A child playing in his father's optical shop, so the legend goes, placed two lenses in a tube and pointed them at him. Weathervane. ... Imagine that first vertiginous moment when glass became a cosmic eye. The shock of seeing crater shadows crawl across the moon's face in real time. The dizzying perspective shift of watching. Venus wax and wane like a celestial mood ring. This was more than magnification, it was time travel, bringing light that had journeyed years across space directly to your retina as you drift toward sleep tonight. Consider this. Every telescope advance began with someone squinting, monks at manuscripts, sailors at horizons, Galileo at Jupiter, that need to see just a little further, a little clearer, still pulls us onward. The stars haven't changed, but how we see them. That revolution never ends. The workshop smelled of pine, resin, and polished brass, the air thick with the sharp scent of Venetian glass. Galilei, sleeves rolled past his elbows, ran his fingertips along the latest lens as if reading its secrets through his calluses. The curve was all wrong, a hair too flat along the northern edge. With a sigh that fogged the glass, he returned it to the grinding stone. The rhythmic scrape, echoing like a reluctant heartbeat against the walls of his cluttered workspace beyond the window. Padua slept beneath a blanket of stars. Somewhere in the distance, church bells marked Compline, their measured tones drifting across the canals like flat stones skipping on black water. Galileo barely registered the sound. His world had narrowed to this: the pressure of his thumbs against cool glass, the grit of emery dust beneath his nails, the desperate hope that tonight, maybe tonight, the heavens would finally reveal their secrets. It began with rumors, just scraps of tavern talk drifting up from Venice's docks. Dutch spectacle makers crafting tubes that made distant ships appear nearer. Child's play, really? But the idea took root in Galileo's mind like ivy cracking stone. For weeks he'd experimented, in secret, combining concave and convex lenses in lead tubes wrapped with faded velvet from his mother's old gown. The results were frustrating, blurs within blurs, doubling at the edges like eyes strained by candlelight too long. Then, on a November evening, when the damp made his knuckles ache, something changed. The moon hung low and heavy, that familiar silver disk generations of poets had called perfect. Galileo pressed his eye to the tube's cold rim. His breath caught where there should have been smooth luminescence stood mountains, their jagged peaks casting shadows so sharp he could almost feel their rocky edges. Craters pocked the surface like wounds, their depths swallowing moonlight whole. The sight sent an electric jolt up his spine. This was no perfect celestial sphere. This, this was a place. My God, he whispered to the empty workshop, fog blooming and fading on the lands. The church taught that the heavens were immutable, flawless, divine in their unblemished glory. But the evidence burning in his retinas showed a moon as rough and weathered as the Apennines outside his window. This was more than magnification. It was time travel, bringing light that had journeyed years across space directly to your retina as you drift toward sleep tonight. Consider this. Every telescope advance began with someone squinting monks and manuscripts. Sailors at horizons, Galileo at Jupiter, that need to see just a little further, a little clearer, still pulls us onward. The stars haven't changed, but how we see them. That revolution never ends. The workshop smelled of pine resin and polished brass, the air thick with the sharp scent of Venetian glass. Galileo Galila, sleeves rolled past his elbows, ran his fingertips along the latest lens as if reading its secrets through his calluses. The curve was all wrong, a hair too flat along the northern edge. With a sigh that fogged the glass, he returned it to the grinding stone. The rhythmic scrape, echoing like a reluctant heartbeat against the walls of his cluttered workspace. Beyond the window, Padua slept beneath a blanket of stars. Somewhere in the distance, church bells marked Compline, their measured tones drifting across the canals like flat stones skipping on black water. Galileo barely registered the sound. His world had narrowed to this, the pressure of his thumbs against cool glass, the grit of emery dust beneath his nails, the desperate hope that tonight, maybe tonight, the heavens would finally reveal their secrets. It began with rumors, just scraps of tavern talk drifting up from Venice's docks, Dutch spectacle makers crafting tubes that made distant ships appear nearer. Child's play, really? But the idea took root in Galileo's mind, like ivy cracking stone. For weeks he'd experimented, in secret, combining concave and convex lenses in lead tubes wrapped with faded velvet from his mother's old gown. The results were frustrating, blurs within blurs, doubling at the edges like eyes strained by candlelight too long. Then, on a November evening when the damp made his knuckles ache, something changed. The moon hung low and heavy, that familiar silver disk generations of poets had called perfect. Galileo pressed his eye to the tube's cold rim. His breath caught where there should have been smooth luminescence stood mountains, actual mountains, their jagged peaks casting shadows so sharp he could almost feel their rocky edges. Craters pocked the surface like wounds, their depths swallowing moonlight whole. The sight sent an electric jolt up his spine. This was no perfect celestial sphere. This, this was a place. My God, he whispered to the empty workshop, fog blooming and fading on the lens. The church taught that the heavens were immutable, flawless, divine in their unblemished glory. But the evidence burning in his retinas showed a moon as rough and weathered as the Apennines outside his window. He worked feverishly after that. Nights blurred together as he refined his design, his occhiali growing stronger with each iteration. By January, he could magnify objects 20 times. On the 7th night of that cold month, while tracking Jupiter's stately progression across the sky, he noticed 3 small stars aligned near the planet, unusual in their straightness. The next night, they'd moved. It's the wrong way. Galileo's meticulous nature asserted itself. Night after shivering night, he documented their dance. 4 stars now, 4, circling Jupiter like moths around a candle. The implications sent wine sloshing from his goblet as he paced. If celestial bodies could orbit something other than Earth, what did that say about the perfect Ptolemaic order? About the Church's teachings? About humanity's place in God's design? He wrote to Kepler in code, their letters passing like conspirators through the post. The planets are other Earths. The words looked treasonous, even in cipher. But the universe cares nothing for mortal secrets. His findings spread, carried by the same scholars who crowded his lectures at Padua's University. By 1611, Cardinal Bellarmine requested a private demonstration in Rome's halls of power. The old prelate peered through the telescope with rheumy eyes gone wide behind the lenses. Most interesting, he murmured, non-committal. But his fingers tightened on the brass tube. The years that followed tasted of both triumph and copper. Galileo's Starry Messenger treatise set Europe's intelligentsia ablaze. He discovered sunspots, sacrilegious stains on the purportedly immaculate sun. Venus showed phases like the moon, definitive proof it circled the sun. Each discovery hammered another nail into the coffin of Gocentrism. By 1632, his dialogue concerning the 2 chief world systems dropped like lit oil in a sanctuary. The character, Simplicio, defender of Earth-centered astronomy, spouted arguments, suspiciously similar to those of Pope Urban VIII himself. The offense couldn't be ignored. The summons came on a Wednesday. It's delivered by a stone-faced messenger whose boots left muddy prints across Galileo's treasured Anatolian rug. The trial lasted months. They called it an interview, a polite fiction. Stifling chambers, inquisitors picked apart his life's work like vultures stripping flesh. Did he not understand he contradicted Scripture? Had he forgotten Joshua commanded the sun to stand still, not the earth? Galileo, old now and plagued by arthritis, stood his ground with weary dignity. Mathematics is the language in which God has written the universe, he insisted, voice gone hoarse from argument. But when shown the instruments of persuasion, when reminded of Giordano Bruno's fate at the stake just 33 years prior, he knelt. I abjure, curse, and detest my errors. The words tasted like gall, legend claims as he rose, fingers pressed to the cold floor for balance. He whispered, ... and yet it moves, though no scribe recorded it. The truth, like Jupiter's moons, refused to stay suppressed. House arrest proved both punishment and blessing. Confined to his villa in Archistry, with his instruments confiscated, the old man turned inward. Gradually, secretly, he resumed work, studying pendulum motions, dictating thoughts on acceleration to faithful disciples. His eyes, ruined by decades of solar observations, could no longer distinguish Jupiter's moons. But their dance continued behind his lids each night. When blindness finally claimed him completely in 1638, Case swore they could still find him in the garden some nights, face upturned, though his eyes saw nothing, as if the stars had simply moved inside him. The irony, on the very day he died in 1642, another child entered the world who would take up his work, a boy in Lincolnshire, named Isaac Newton. But that's another story, one for another night. For now, let Galileo's stubborn stars carry you toward sleep, their motions as sure now as they were when first glimpsed through perfect glass, 4 centuries ago. The attic smelled of molten metal and burnt coffee. A sharp metallic temps lingering in the beams like scripture written in sulfur and iron. Isaac Newton hunched over his workbench. 23 and feverish with inspiration, sleeves rolled past bony elbows shiny with burn scars. Outside, London's plague-gimted streets steamed with August heat. But here in his makeshift laboratory, shadows clung like priests to Dauta. K-Prism sat on the oak desk, single triangle of glass, costing him 3 months' stipend. Its angled faces smudged with fingerprints where he'd compulsively wiped stray rainbows from its surface. That prism had unraveled sunlight on his bedroom wall last week, proving color wasn't some trick of the eye, but woven into light itself. Newton exhaled slowly through his nose. If white light could be dismantled into spectral components, then current telescopic lenses weren't just flawed. They were philosophically bankrupt. He scraped whetstone against bronze, the rhythmic screech echoing off the attic beams. The disc in his lap, 2 inches wide and gleaming dully, was his 4th attempt. The first had cracked during cooling. The second warped like old parchment. The third, he pushed the memory away, focusing instead on Nicholas Mercator's snide laughter when he'd suggested replacing lenses with mirrors at the Royal Society's last meeting. A looking glass to study stars. The mathematician had smirked into his claret. Next, you'll claim cats should navigate ships. Newton's fingers tightened on the polishing rack. Tonight would decide. The previous afternoon, he'd calculated exactly how a parabolic curve could focus all light to the same point, regardless of color. The mathematics sang with crystalline certainty, angles and indices dancing across Vellumbat. London's glassmakers had refused his specifications outright. One red-faced craftsman threw him out with shouts about heresy against God's own optics. Newton became metalsmith. For 3 weeks, he'd transformed his quarters into a foundry, melting down old candlesticks and pewter plates in a crucible balanced precariously on his fireplace. His hands, more accustomed to quills than tongs, fumbled the first pouring. Molten metal seared across his wrist, still langry welt, now hidden beneath his cuff, but he'd persisted through the pain, grinding and polishing night after night, until his shoulders locked with tension. A knock rattled the door. Isaac. His roommate Wiccan's voice filtered through the wood. There's another body carted past on Fleet Street. The colleges are closing. Newton didn't glance up. Leave me, at least, eat something. Trencher of congealing pottage slid under the door. The young scholar wiped his forehead, leaving a bronze smear on his temple. The mirror's surface now reflected his hollow cheeks and bloodshot eyes with disturbing clarity, working by the erratic light of a single tallow candle. He'd polished its curve for 93 consecutive hours, till even the whorls of his own fingertips shimmered in its imperfect surface. At midnight, he assembled the apparatus. The makeshift telescope looked at certitude of stitched parchment, just 6 inches long, the tiny mirror mounted inside with wax and prayer. Newton cupped it in trembling hands like a priest handling sacraments and carried it to Trinity College's rooftop. Cambridge stretched silent below, emptied by pestilence. No scholars crossed the quadrangle. No candles burned in lecture halls. Only the wind moved, riffling his pages of calculations as he positioned the tube toward Jupiter ascending in the east. His first glimpse almost made him hurl a contraption into the cam. Blurred, useless. Another failure. Then dash with minute adjustments. The gas giants snapped into view. Newton's breath fogged the eyepiece. No rainbow fringes. No chromatic aberrations. Just crisp bands of ochre and cream swirling across Jupiter's disk. Its 4 Galilean moons, sharp as pins, sticking into velvet. As he watched, transfixity. Europa's shadow began its slow creep across the cloud tops, a celestial ballet, visible, imperfect, unprecedented clarity. The notebook tumbled from his lap. Pages fluttered across the rooftop like wounded doves as he scrambled to realign the scope. Stars that had been smeared points resolved into perfect spheres. The moon's terminator line showed individual crater rims, casting shadows. You could almost measure it with calipers. Newton didn't sleep for 3 nights. He sketched furiously as dawn tinted the sky designs for larger mirrors, mounting mechanisms, precision grinding tools. His quill flew across vellum, drafting a letter to the Royal Society that would begin. When light is deflected by refraction, it suffers divergence of its rays. But by reflection, this evil is cured. The implications unfolded in his mind like infinity mirrored between 2 glasses. A telescope that didn't distort. Instruments that could measure starlight without lies. Navigational aids for British ships. Astronomical tools to map the solar system's true dimensions. Perhaps hear his pacing war path in the attic floorboards. Machines large enough to glimpse the structure of the universe itself. By Michaelmas term, when Cambridge's scholars crept back from country estates, rumors swirled about the plague year's lone resident. They whispered how Newton had redefined light itself in their absence. How his tiny reflector showed Saturn's rings clearer than Christian Huygens' massive refractors. They called it magic until he demonstrated the principles his hand still scarred from casting, his eyes bright with reflected starlight. Robert Hooke would later claim priority. Flamsteed would quibble over accuracy. Leibniz would weave complex mathematics around the edges. But none could deny the fundamental revolution. Sometimes, to see further, you needed to bend not the light, but the very framework of understanding. Tonight, descendants of Newton's mirror still orbit Earth in the Hubble Space Telescope. Their polished surfaces catching photons that began their journey when woolly mammoths still walked the Thames. Larger mirrors will soon peer even deeper from mountaintop observatories, tracing its lineage back to that single bronze disk, smaller than a trencher, forged in pestilence and polished by stubbornness. But on August nights, when the Perseids streak across England, you can still stand where Newton did, squinting at the same stars he knew. And imagine the moment when human sight first broke free of chromatic chains, when we learned that sometimes clearest view comes not from looking straight on, but from learning to see at an angle. And so the universe, which had hidden in plain sight for millennia, finally showed its true face in the curve of polished metal, not because the stars changed, but because one persistent graduate student refused to accept the blur. The winter of 1781 smelled of molten pitch and frozen ink. The workshop's single, candle guttering as William Herschel adjusted the brass fittings on his newest eyepiece. His fingers throbbed from cold and countless tiny cuts, the inevitable price of hand-grinding mirrors when you couldn't afford apprentices. Outside, Bath's church bells marked midnight, their echoes swallowed by fresh snowfall. Caroline would be furious he'd skipped supper again, but the Orion Nebula hung ripe for observation. Its smudged glow visible even through the attic's frosted glass. He exhaled slowly, watching his breath fog the polished metal before him. This reflector represented months of stolen hours, the mahogany tube salvaged from a shipbuilder's discard pile. The mirror, cast from secretive blends of copper and tin, melted down over Caroline's best parlor stove. If it worked tonight, he might finally prove those swirling celestial clouds weren't atmospheric effects as Flamsteed claimed, but something far more profound. The first shock came before he even aligned the finder, scoped, where star charts showed a single point in Orion's sword. The eyepiece revealed a swirling tapestry of light. Gaseous tendrils curled like smoke from a musket's barrel, knotted around a quartet of newborn stars whose blue-white intensity made him blink. Herschel's pulse hammered strangely in his throat. This was no celestial stain, as other astronomers dismissed such sights. This was creation in motion, Caroline. His voice cracked from disuse. His sister appeared within minutes, woolen shawl thrown over her nightdress, the slate she always carried already chalked with grid lines. Without a word, she took position at the observation log as Herschel began, dictating measurements, their lifelong rhythm reasserting itself effortlessly. When dawn's first light bleached the nebula from view 6 hours later, her shorthand filled 12 pages with the most peculiar details. 417. Central trapezium exhibits variable luminance. 05:02. Southwest filament appears connected to B33 in SAGITTARIUS. 05:49. Noted. Reddish tinge along eastern rim suggesting elemental. They worked like this for 17 months, while Herschel gave music lessons by day, the income still necessary. Despite King George's patronage, Caroline perfected their star catalogs, developing a numerical classification system for nebulae that astronomers would use for a century. By the time William completed his monstrous 40-foot telescope in 1789, its aperture, wide as a carriage wheel, they'd cataloged over 2,500 cosmic clouds, each entry challenging the prevailing view of a static universe. The scientific establishment bristled at the Royal Society. Portly Dr. Maskelyne sniffed that the working-class German musician lacked proper academic temperament, while French rivals dismissed his discoveries as optical illusions. Herschel responded, not with polemics, but with data. Night after freezing night, he demonstrated how certain nebulae resolved into clusters when viewed through sufficient aperture, while others, like Orion's glow, remained stubbornly diffuse. Proof of true gaseous composition. His 1811 paper on the construction of the heavens dropped like a grenade in Europe's salons. The Milky Way wasn't some divine firmament, but a disk of stars, our solar system embedded within it, like a single pearl in an endless necklace. Those star gardens he'd mapped, cosmic crucibles where gravity sculpted dust into suns. The implications left even Kant stammering about infinite time. Caroline found him collapsed at his desk 3 weeks after its publication, the latest nebula sketches still clutched in ink-stained fingers. The physician diagnosed exhaustion compounded by years of inhaling metal, dust, and telescope varnish as she nursed him through the fevered nights. His delirious mutterings alternated between musical notation and orbital calculations, as if Mozart and Newton were arguing in his skull. Recovery brought unexpected clarity. Seated in the wheelchair, Caroline built to accommodate his failing legs. Herschel dictated revisions to his catalogs while she operated the great telescope. Their last major discovery came on a bitterly cold February evening in 1821. A planetary nebula in Aquarius, whose concentric shells pulsed with the unmistakable rhythm of a dying star shedding its skin. William's trembling hands couldn't hold a quill by then, but his voice remained steady as ever. Note the pattern, Lena, ... exactly like sound waves propagating through air. The universe sings its changes if we would learn to see the notes. He lived long enough to see his work shape a new generation of astronomers. Then slipped away during an unseasonably warm April night while Caroline recorded common observations in the next room. They buried him with simple honors in St. Lawrence's churchyard, his epitaph bearing only dates beneath a single engraved musical rest symbol, though visitors often note how the stone aligns perfectly with Vega's rising on Midsummer's Eve. Today, the Hubble Space Telescope's deepest images vindicate his intuition in ways that would have strained even his boundless imagination. Those star gardens now number in the billions, each nebula a nursery where gravity composes new solar systems from the ashes of old ones. Modern spectroscopy confirms his suspicion about their elemental hues, the reds of ionized hydrogen, the blues of young stars burning fierce and fast, But for all our orbiting observatories and supercooled CCD arrays, there remains something profoundly intimate about lifting binoculars on a winter night to that same patch of Orion's sword. Nebula hasn't changed since Herschel first saw its secret firelight. Its story still unfolds at the same deliberate pace, indifferent to our brief lifetimes. Perhaps that's the real lesson of his star gardens, that curiosity and craft can build bridges across centuries. That a musician with homemade lenses might eavesdrop on stellar lullabies older than civilization. That even now, when you gaze at those glowing gas clouds, you're not just seeing stars being born, you're witnessing the afterimage of wonder itself, burning bright against time's dark canvas. The observatory atop Mount Wilson was a cathedral of glass and steel. Its dome, yawning, open to the cosmos, like a mouth ready to sing. Edwin Hubble stood at the eyepiece of the 100-inch telescope, largest in the world, his heart racing with the thrill of discovery. The night sky stretched infinitely above him, a tapestry of stars woven with the threads of galaxies, each one a note in the grand symphony of the universe. Hubble had come to this mountaintop sanctuary to escape the noise of the world below, to listen to the whispers of the cosmos. The year was 1923, and the Great War had left scars on the earth and in the hearts of men. Here, under the vast expanse of the Milky Way, he felt a sense of purpose, a connection to something greater than himself. He adjusted the focus, peering through the eyepiece, and gasped. The Andromeda Galaxy unfolded before him, a swirling spiral of light and dust, its arms reaching out like the fingers of a celestial hand. For years, astronomers had debated whether these nebulae were part of our own galaxy or separate entities altogether. But Hubble was about to change everything. With meticulous precision, he began to measure the distance to Andromeda, using the light from its variable stars as a cosmic ruler. Each observation was a note in a symphony of data, each calculation a chord in the harmony of understanding. As he worked, he felt the weight of history pressing down on him, the legacy of Herschel, Newton, and Galileo guiding his hands. Days turned into weeks. T's findings began to take shape. He discovered that Andromeda was not just a distant cloud, but a galaxy in its own right, a vast collection of stars, gas, and dust, separated from the Milky Way by millions of light years. The implications were staggering. The universe was far larger than anyone had imagined, a boundless expanse filled with countless galaxies, each one a world unto itself. But Hubble's work did not stop there. He turned his gaze to other galaxies, measuring their redshifts and discovering a pattern that would forever alter humanity's understanding of the cosmos. The farther away a galaxy was, the faster it appeared to be moving away from us. This observation led to the formulation of Hubble's law, a revelation that the universe was expanding, a cosmic symphony playing out in real time. As he stood at the telescope, Hubble felt a sense of awe wash over him. The universe was alive, a dynamic entity constantly changing and evolving. He could almost hear the music of the spheres, a celestial orchestra playing a symphony of creation and destruction, of birth and death. Each galaxy was a note, each star a chord, and together they formed a melody that resonated through the fabric of space and time. But with this newfound knowledge came a heavy burden. Keble understood that the universe's expansion implied a beginning, a moment when everything came into existence. The implications of a finite universe challenged the long-held beliefs of many, and he braced himself for the inevitable backlash from the scientific community and beyond. In the years that followed, Hubble's discoveries transformed the field of astronomy. He became a household name, his work inspiring a generation of scientists and dreamers. The Hubble Space Telescope, launched decades later, would carry his legacy into the cosmos. capturing breathtaking images of distant galaxies and nebulae, revealing the beauty and complexity of the universe in ways he could only have imagined. Yet, for all the accolades and recognition, Hubble remained humble. He often returned to Mount Wilson, standing beneath the stars that had first ignited his passion. He would close his eyes and listen to the silence, feeling the pulse of the universe in his veins. One night, as he gazed up at the heavens, he recalled the words of his mentor, George Ellery Hale. "The universe is a great symphony, and we are but its humble musicians." Hubble smiled, knowing that he had played his part in that grand composition, adding his notes to the ever-expanding score of existence. As he stood there, the cool night air wrapping around him like a comforting embrace, he felt a profound sense of connection to the cosmos. The stars twinkled above, each one a reminder of the beauty and mystery that lay beyond the reach of human understanding. He knew that the universe would continue to unfold its secrets, revealing new wonders to those who dared to look. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and a mind brimming with curiosity, Edwin Hubble turned back to his telescope, ready to explore the next chapter of the cosmic symphony the universe awaited. And he was determined to listen. Key elements: maintaining style, sensory imagery, the observatory as a cathedral, the night sky as a tapestry, musical metaphors, the universe as a symphony, each galaxy a note, historical context, references to previous astronomers and their legacies, personal reflection, Hubble's humility and connection to the cosmos. Circular closure ends with Hubble's determination to continue exploring the universe. Carl Jansky's fingers trembled as he adjusted the brass dials of his makeshift radio receiver. The winter wind howled outside the rickety shed at Bell Telephone Laboratories' New Jersey facility, its icy fingers finding every crack in the wooden walls. He blew on his numb hands before returning them to the equipment, his breath fogging in the cold air. The year was 1931, and the young engineer was hunting an elusive electrical disturbance that had been plaguing transatlantic shortwave communications. The antenna array before him looked like something from a mad scientist's nightmare, a collection of brass pipes and wooden beams mounted on Model T Ford wheels, capable of rotating in a ponderous circle he'd nicknamed his merry-ground. Its exposed wiring hummed in the December air as Jansky leaned closer to his receiver, the static hissing through his headphones like a living thing. Then it came again, that strange, pulsating whisper buried in the radio noise. 14.6 meters, Jansky muttered to his empty workspace, scribbling the wavelength in his notebook with fingers that refused to cooperate with the cold. He'd been tracking this anomaly for months, ever since his bosses at Bell Labs had assigned him to investigate atmospheric static interfering with their new transatlantic telephone service. The sound was unlike anything in Jansky's experience, not the sharp cracks of lightning static, nor the warbles of distant radio stations. This was something softer, more persistent, a hiss that rose and fell with clockwork precision every 23 hours and 56 minutes. Jansky adjusted his spectacles and checked his calculations again. The number gnawed at him. 23 hours, 56 minutes, the precise length of a sidereal day, the time it took for the stars to complete one rotation in Earth's sky. Not the solar day of 24 hours that marked our planet's rotation relative to the sun, but the true cosmic rhythm of the heavens. He stayed at his post as night faded into dawn, the pages of his lab notebook filling with meticulous observations. When the morning shift arrived, bleary-eyed and yawning, he found Jansky still hunched over his equipment, coffee long gone cold beside him. "I think," he told the baffled technicians who came to relieve him, "the Milky Way is transmitting." The Bell Labs executives listened politely to Jansky's report before returning to their pressing concerns of telephone static and profit margins. The New York Times ran a brief piece about electrical waves from beyond Earth on page 21, before the story faded into obscurity. but 300 miles away in Wheaton, Illinois, an amateur astronomer named Grote Reber read the article with growing excitement. Reber's backyard radio telescope was the stuff of neighborhood legend, a 31-foot diameter parabolic dish constructed from sheet metal and spare lumber between 1937 and 1940. His mother's clothesline poles served as supports. The rotating mount came from parts salvaged from a junked farm tractor. Night, after working his day job at a radio manufacturer, Reber would climb into the wooden shack beneath his dish and tune his homemade receiver, searching the skies for Jansky's mysterious cosmic static. It arrived on a humid August evening in 1941, a soft hiss from the constellation Sagittarius that made Reber drop his wrench in shock. Over the following months, armed with his home-built equipment and an engineer's patience, Reber created the first radio map of the night sky, revealing a universe singing in wavelengths invisible to human eyes. Meanwhile, in the mountains of West Virginia, the young physicist Frank Drake was listening to. His doctoral research at Harvard had focused on radio astronomy, and by 1958, he found himself directing the newly established National Radio Astronomy Observatory in Green Bank. Drake's towering T5-foot telescope listened for whispers from the cosmos. But his most startling discovery came when he pointed the dish at our own solar system. Europa sang to him. The icy moon of Jupiter radiated radio waves in a pattern that suggested vast saltwater oceans beneath its frozen crust, the first hint that alien life might exist in our cosmic backyard. Drake's mind reeled at the implications, even as he continued listening for signals from more distant stars. By 1963, the mystery of Jansky static took an astonishing turn at Bell Lab's Holmdel facility in New Jersey. Engineers Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson had taken charge of a massive horn antenna originally built for satellite communications. The device was plagued by persistent background noise they couldn't eliminate, not even after scraping away layers of pigeon droppings from the receiver. A story that would become legend in astronomy circles. The hiss came from everywhere at once, not the Milky Way's center, but all directions equally. As theoretical physicists at Princeton soon realized, this was the afterglow of creation itself, the cosmic microwave background radiation, the cooled remnant of the Big Bang's unimaginable fireball. The universe had been whispering its origin story all along, if only someone had ears to hear. The discoveries came faster than each building on the last. At Cambridge University, Jocelyn Bell's sensitive radio telescopes detected the first pulsar in 1967, the rapidly spinning corpse of a dead star sending out pulses of radio waves with such clockwork precision that they were briefly considered potential alien signals. Bell's supervisor would win the Nobel Prize for the discovery, while she was relegated to a footnote, though her work revealed the violent beauty of stellar evolution. In Puerto Rico's jungle-covered mountains, the 1,000-foot dish of Arecibo Observatory listened for whispers from distant galaxies. When Cornell astronomers Frank Drake and Carl Sagan used the giant telescope in 1974 to broadcast the famous Arecibo message toward a star cluster 25,000 light-years away, they included humanity's greatest discoveries, the double helix of DNA, our solar system's configuration, even the crooked smile of the telescope itself. Whether anyone would hear this shout into the cosmic dark remained unknown. For the first time, Earth had answered the universe's whispers with one of its own. Modern radio telescopes, vast arrays of synchronized dishes stretching across deserts, now captured details their founders could never have imagined. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array in Chile's high desert photographs newborn solar systems coalescing from dust. China's 500-meter aperture spherical telescope probes the mysterious fast radio bursts that flashed across the cosmos like celestial lighthouses. The Event Horizon Telescope Network combined 8 observatories across the planet to capture humanity's first image of a black hole's shadow in 2019. Yet, even now, when radio astronomers tune their receivers between stations, they sometimes pause to listen to the original static Jansky first observed the whisper that started it all. That ancient hiss lingers in the background of every observation. The cosmic microwave background that permeates all of space like the afterimage of creation. Jansky never lived to see how his discovery would transform our understanding of the universe. He died in 1950 at just 44. His quiet Midwestern demeanor unsuited to the celebrity that might have come with his findings. Today, while optical telescopes show us the universe's beauty, radio telescopes reveal its song, the hydrogen hum of stellar nurseries, the crackle of magnetic storms on distant suns, the lonely pulses of long-dead stars. For all we've learned, the cosmos still keeps its deepest secrets. When radio telescopes first revealed the mysterious WOW signal in 1977, a powerful burst of radio waves from the constellation Sagittarius that lasted just 72 seconds before vanishing forever. Astronomers could only speculate about its origin. To this day, no one knows what created that extraordinary transmission, though dozens of theories abound. Perhaps the greatest lesson from 8 decades of radio astronomy is how much remains unknown. The universe speaks in electromagnetic whispers. We've only begun to comprehend its language written in the static between stations. On quiet nights at remote observatories, veteran astronomers sometimes teach new students a simple ritual, tuning an old receiver between frequencies, where the cosmic background radiation hisses across the emptiness like waves on a cosmic shore. They'll say to the wide-eyed newcomers, adjusting the dials, everything we know about the universe began with someone paying attention to the noise, and in that static lies a humbling truth. For all our technology and knowledge, we still stand on the shore of an infinite ocean, straining to hear the universe whisper its secrets through the dark. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the sprawling landscape of the Atacama Desert. In the distance, the jagged peaks of the Andes loomed like ancient sentinels, their snow-capped summits glowing in the fading light. Here, at the Atacama Large Millimeter Array, AMA, a new generation of astronomers prepared to listen to the universe in ways their predecessors could only dream of. Dr. Sofia Ramirez stood at the control center, her heart racing with anticipation. The hum of machinery surrounded her, a symphony of technology working in harmony to capture the whispers of the cosmos. She had spent years studying the formation of stars and galaxies, and tonight she would witness the birth of a new solar system. As the first data streamed in, Sophia's eyes widened. The screen flickered to life, revealing a swirling disk of gas and dust around a young star, the very cradle of creation. The colors danced across the display, blues and reds, each hue representing different temperatures and compositions. This was not just a scientific observation. It was a glimpse into the past, a moment frozen in time when the universe was still shaping itself. "Look at that," she exclaimed, pointing at the screen. Colleagues gathered around, their faces illuminated by the glow of the monitors. "This is what we've been searching for, a protoplanetary disk in the early stages of formation." The excitement in the room was palpable. They were witnessing the cosmic ballet of gravity and time, where dust and gas coalesced into planets, moons, and perhaps even life. Sophia felt a surge of gratitude for the pioneers who had come before her, Jansky, Reber, Penzias, and Wilson Nietzsche, of whom had laid the groundwork for this moment. Their discoveries had opened the door to a universe rich with stories waiting to be told. As the night deepened, the data continued to flow, revealing intricate details of the disk. Sophia marveled at the swirling patterns, the way the material, clumped together, forming the building blocks of planets. She could almost hear the echoes of the past, the distant whispers of stars being born. The silent explosions of supernova scattering elements across the cosmos, the gentle caress of gravity pulling it all together. But as she watched, a flicker of doubt crept into her mind. What if they were misinterpreting the data? What if this was just another false dawn, another mirage in the vast desert of knowledge? She shook her head, pushing the thought aside. They had the tools, the technology, and the expertise to decipher the universe's secrets. Let's run the simulations, she suggested, her voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling within her. We need to model the dynamics of the disk and see how the planets might form. Her team sprang into action, fingers flying over keyboards as they input the data into their models. The room buzzed with energy, the air thick with anticipation as the simulations began to run. Sophia felt a sense of unity with her colleagues, a shared purpose that transcended individual ambition. They were all part of something greater, a cosmic tapestry woven from the threads of their collective curiosity. Hours passed, and the simulations revealed a stunning outcome. The data suggested that within a few million years, the disk would give rise to a system of planets, each with its own unique characteristics. Some would be rocky and terrestrial, while others would be gas giants, swirling with storms and mysteries of their own. This is incredible, one of her colleagues exclaimed, eyes wide with wonder. We're not just observing, we're predicting the future of this system. Sophia felt a rush of exhilaration. They were not merely passive observers of the universe. They were active participants in its unfolding story. Each discovery was a note in the grand symphony of existence, a reminder that they were all connected to the cosmos in profound ways. As dawn broke over the desert, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, Sophia stepped outside the control center. The air was crisp and cool, the silence of the desert enveloping her like a warm embrace. She gazed up at the stars, still twinkling in the early morning light, and felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought her here in that moment. She understood the significance of their work. They were not just studying the universe. They were part of its narrative, each discovery a thread woven into the fabric of time. The stars above were not distant points of light. They were the ancestors of the elements that made up her very being. As she turned back toward the control center, Sophia felt a renewed sense of purpose. The universe was vast and mysterious, but it was also a place of wonder and beauty. With each observation, they were peeling back the layers of the cosmos, revealing the intricate patterns that connected all things. The Atacama Desert, with its stark beauty and unyielding silence, had become a sanctuary for her spirit. Here, she could listen to the whispers of the universe, feel the pulse of creation, and know that she was part of something much larger than herself. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the landscape, Sophia returned to her team, ready to dive back into the data. They had only scratched the surface of the cosmic tapestry, and she was determined to unravel its mysteries, one thread at a time in the years to come. Sophia and her colleagues would make groundbreaking discoveries, each one building on the legacy of those who had come before. They would uncover the secrets of distant galaxies, the birth of stars, and the potential for life beyond Earth. And through it all, they would remain connected to the whispers of the cosmos, forever listening to the stories written in the stars. As she settled back into her chair, the hum of the machinery surrounding her felt like a heartbeat, a reminder that the universe was alive, and they were all part of its grand design. The journey was just beginning, and Sophia was ready to embrace the adventure that lay ahead. The control room of the James Webb Space Telescope hummed with the quiet tension of a surgical theater. Dr. Yalara Voss watched the first images materialize on her monitor with the reverence of an archivist unrolling a medieval manuscript. The infrared signatures painting themselves across her screen weren't mere data. They were cosmic sonnets written in photons that had traveled 13 billion years to reach her. "What are we seeing?" whispered the young intern, hovering beside her, breath fogging the chilled observation room glass. Ilara zoomed in until the pixels resolved into swirling nebulae, their tendrils finger-painting the void with stellar nurseries. "The universe's first dictionary," she murmured. "Every element's birth certificate." The spectrum analysis scrolling alongside the image told a story more profound than the visuals. Hydrogen and helium dominated, as expected, from the early universe. But there, buried in the noise, flashed the unmistakable spectral signature of oxygen. Not the oxygen of planets or atmospheres, but primordial oxygen forged in the first generations of stars, then scattered across the cosmos by their violent deaths. Ilara's fingers trembled as she cross-referenced the data against known stellar models. The numbers didn't make sense. This oxygen existed in quantities that shouldn't have been possible so soon after the Big Bang, its presence defying current theories of galactic evolution. In astrophysics, contradictions were either mistakes or revolutions. Ilara rechecked her calibrations until her eyes burned, but the anomaly persisted. Somewhere in cosmological history, the universe had accelerated its elemental alchemy beyond what physicists predicted. Like a child skipping grades in stellar school, she remembered her graduate school professor's words. The universe speaks to languages, mathematics, and surprise. This qualified as both. Across the Atlantic, radio telescopes were listening to a different cosmic dialect. The hydrogen line at 21 centimeters that whisper, Jansky, first detected now, mapped the universe's large-scale structure. Astronomers traced filaments of gas stretching between galaxies like luminous spiderwebs, each thread vibrating with the signature frequency of neutral hydrogen. But deep in those scans lurked another mystery. Certain regions emitted the 21 centimeter signal weaker than predicted, as if some unknown force or particle was absorbing the radiation. Theorists called it the cosmic dawn signal, potential evidence of the universe's first starlight interacting with dark matter. The anomalies hinted at physics beyond the standard model, whispers of a deeper reality hidden beneath observable phenomena. Both discoveries, Webb's precocious oxygen and the missing hydrogen, pointed toward the same unsettling possibility. The early universe evolved faster and more mysteriously than textbooks allowed. The cosmic dawn may have broken sooner, brighter, and stranger than anyone imagined. Ilara leaned back from her console, the glowing screen imprinting afterimages on her retinas. Kada, somewhere out there, photons from these primordial epochs still traveled through space, carrying their coded messages about creation's first moments. Each wavelength, from radio to infrared, formed part of a grand linguistic tapestry she was only beginning to decipher. When she closed her eyes to rest them, she saw the spectral lines dancing against her eyelids, oxygen's fingerprint glowing green, hydrogen's red pulse, the whole electromagnetic spectrum vibrating with stories waiting to be read. The universe hadn't merely created the elements, it had written them into existence with the same fundamental constants that now allowed her to decode their origins. In that moment of quiet revelation, Ilara understood that she wasn't just observing the universe's history, she was reading its autobiography, written in the only language powerful enough to span eternity. Light, midnight in the Atacama Desert, tastes like static and anticipation. Dr. Rafael Ortiz waits beneath the spinning dish of Alma's array operations site, his fingers drumming an absent rhythm against the telescope's coolant pipes. The readouts before him shimmer with data from Sagittarius, the Astris, our galaxy's supermassive black hole, but the numbers resemble sheet music missing its crescendo. He's been chasing this gravitational refrain for 17 months. Tonight, the Event Horizon Telescope's global network of observatories hums in perfect synchrony. From Hawaii's snow-capped volcanoes to Spain's high desert plateaus, 8 radio telescopes currently point toward the Milky Way's heart, their combined aperture effectively creating an Earth-sized instrument. The technology would have made Jansky weep. Interferometry is so precise it could resolve a grapefruit on the moon. Raphael checks the timestamps. In 7 minutes, simultaneous observations begin. Handel mutters his systems engineer, Alina, adjusting her headset. The control room smells of overworked processors and stale yerba mate. They've been debugging the timing systems since sunset, ensuring every telescope's atomic clock remains synchronized within picoseconds. 1 microsecond of drift could unravel the entire observation. At 3 o'clock UT, the dance commences. Petabytes of data begin flowing northward to MIT's Haystack Observatory, where correlators sort the signals into coherence. Raphael watches the first interferometric fringes resolve on his monitor, jagged peaks confirming alignment across continents. Somewhere in that cosmic static lies the phantom they're hunting, the shadow silhouette of an event horizon itself. Days later, after exhaustive processing, the image emerges, not the blurred smudge theorists predicted, but a luminous crescent, wrapped around darkness, photons bent into a fiery halo by space-time's curvature. The asymmetric glow reveals SGRA** spin dragging space itself around like twisted fabric, its relativity made visible, its Einstein's equations rendered in fire and shadow. Perhaps most astonishing are the plasma jets streaking outward at near light speed. Raphael traces their spiraling paths across the simulation, realizing he's witnessing the black hole's voice, energy converted to matter through processes not fully understood. The entire system thrums with dynamics that make his equations feel inadequate, like describing Beethoven with algebra. When he finally presents the findings, astrophysicists debate the implications in hushed tones. Some argue the image confirms general relativity's predictions with unprecedented precision. Others whisper about anomalies in the accretion disk's temperature distribution, small deviations, suggesting new physics lurking beyond Einstein's masterpiece. But Raphael keeps returning to one thought. This isn't just an image. It's a moment suspended in the infinite light that escaped annihilation by the narrowest margin, carrying tales from the universe's most extreme environment. A postcard from the edge of understanding. Late that night, alone with the data, he replaced the observation's radio frequency soundtrack. The harmonies hidden in the noise remind him that every black hole spins its own cosmic aria, composed in wavelengths spanning the electromagnetic spectrum. We've only just begun to listen. The basement of LIGO's Livingston Observatory smelled of chilled metal and ozone. The humming interferometer stretching down to perpendicular tunnels like a sleeping dragon. Dr. Gabriella Carter ran her fingertips along the still vacuum chamber, feeling the subtle vibrations transmitted through her latex gloves. Somewhere beneath her palm flowed laser light, so stable it could detect disturbances smaller than 1,000th of a proton's width. She checked the clock again. 3:42 a.m. The coffee in her thermos had gone cold hours ago. Then the alarms shattered. The stillness Gabriella spun toward the monitors as squiggling lines spiked across the displays, first in Louisiana, then milliseconds later in Washington State. The waveform unfolding on-screen bore the unmistakable signature of colliding black holes, a rising chirp that peaked as the two gravitational titans spiraled together, followed by silence when they merged into one. The signal lasted barely half a second. By dawn, the entire astrophysics community was awake. The event, designated GW150914, appeared to show two black holes 29 and 36 times the sun's mass dancing toward mutual annihilation. 1.3 billion years ago, their collision converted about 3 solar masses directly into gravitational waves. Energy shaking space-time so profoundly that the faint ripples still distorted Earth's fabric when they finally reached us. Gabriella played the audio translation. Repeatedly, that eerie rising whoop, like a cosmic slide whistle ascending toward the inaudible. She closed her eyes and imagined the actual event, two dark spheres distorting starlight around them as they circled faster, faster, until space-time itself couldn't contain the violence, and ... silence, the most cataclysmic event modern astronomy had ever recorded, left no electromagnetic trace whatsoever, just these subtle vibrations in the universe's fabric. Unlike the glorious supernova or brilliant quasars astronomers traditionally studied, this was darkness colliding with darkness, its only language, the stretching and squeezing of space itself. Days later, when word came that over 60 seconds of missing data coincided with GW 150,914's detection loss due to a minor software glitch, Gabriella laughed until tears streaked her exhausted face. Even our most advanced instruments still missed part of the cosmic symphony. Now she keeps alive. Feed from LIGO and its European counterpart, Virgo, running constantly in her office. Speakers turned low. The background static occasionally resolves into another chirping crescendo, neutron stars colliding, intermediate black holes merging, mysteries yet unnamed announcing their existence through vibrations we've only just learned to feel, sometimes at night. Putting her palm against the wall, Gabriella swears she can detect the faintest tremor, the distant wars between dark titans shaking everything in existence, ever so slightly, if you know precisely how to listen. The elevator descended with a hydraulic sigh, its descent swallowing Nathan Cho in complete darkness. 2 minutes passed in the pitch-black shaft before dim emergency lights revealed the vast cavern carved deep beneath the black hills. The air smelled of chilled steel and ozone, so pure after filtration that each breath tasted sterile. Nathan's decimeter beeped softly as he stepped onto the observation platform. Even here, nearly a mile underground, a few stray cosmic muons still pierced the rock. Status check. His voice echoed off the titanium tank dominating the chamber. The Lux Zeppelin detector stood 3 stories tall, its nested vessels gleaming under the blue-tinged work lights. A network of pipes and conduits connected it to supporting systems, like 4 lines to some sleeping technological beast. Maria Chen's voice crackled through his headset. Xenon at -103.7 degrees Celsius and holding. PMTs all reporting nominal. Chilled water purity at 99.9992%. It's the faintest hesitation. We're seeing some unusual thermal fluctuations in the Vito system though. Nathan adjusted his glasses, the tiny display in the corner projecting real-time diagnostics. The liquid xenon chamber, 10 metric tons of ultra-pure element kept cryogenically. Still should have been a perfect dark mirror. Instead, the monitoring screens showed faint perturbations swirling through it like ink in water. Not enough to compromise the experiment, but ... wrong. Last calibration sweep caught this. Negative. Started about an hour ago. Prime time for false positives. Nathan rubbed his temples. After 3 months of troubleshooting initial problems, their dark matter detection window was closing before next month's scheduled maintenance. A team had gambled everything on this experimental run. Improved shielding, NCED photomultiplier sensitivity, redesigned TPC grids. Another dry spell could mean losing DOE funding entirely. From diagnostics again, full spectrum. He turned to the graduate student manning the control station. Omar, pull up last week's neutron calibration data for comparison. Minutes. Later, the anomalous thermal patterns persisted even as all systems checked out clean. The team exchanged nervous glances across the control room. Every detector had its quirks, but this felt different. It's like the xenon itself was restless before. A storm dot at 3:17. They got their first hit. A brilliant flash registered on the bottommost photomultiplier array. Not the expected single photon signal, but a cascade, as if something substantial had barreled through several layers of the time projection chamber. A primary scintillation. Confirmed, Maria announced. Looking for our ionization track now. ... There. Nathan leaned over her shoulder as the 3D visualization rendered. The particle's path slanted diagonally across the chamber, interacting multiple times before terminating in the central liquid-gas boundary. Strange behavior for background, radiation, or known particles. Several more events followed over the next hour, never identical, never regularly spaced, but each showing interaction properties that made the standard particle identification algorithms. Trigger warnings. The detector's veto systems ruled out neutrons. Muon tagging confirmed these weren't cosmic stragglers. Whatever was punching through their xenon reservoir left signatures tantalizingly close to theoretical WIMP interactions. We should wake up the theorists, Omar whispered. Nathan barely heard him. His attention was locked on the latest event, showing an impossible ionization to scintillation ratio. According to their models, no standard model particle could produce that combination. Felt that electric tingle. All scientists chase the moment when nature shrugs off its dressing gown, revealing something new underneath. By dawn, they'd cataloged 17 interactions with unidentifiable characteristics. Too few for statistical significance, too unusual to dismiss. Data packets had already been encrypted and routed to partner institutions for blind analysis. Nathan knew better than to hope, yet detectors develop ghosts all the time, especially ones pushing the boundaries of sensitivity. But when he finally stumbled into his Spartan dorm room, his last thought before sleep claimed him was of those mesmerizing particle tracks swirling through liquid xenon like cosmic fingerprints no one knew how to read yet. 3 weeks later, the statistical analysis came back. The events clustered around 50 Jeff c², with interaction cross-sections aligning neatly with supersymmetric dark matter theories. Not proof, never proof with such limited data. But the strongest hint yet that their detector might have brushed against the unknown 85% of matter in the universe. Nathan stood again before the towering detector, its surface now dewed with condensation from an upcoming warm-up cycle. In his pocket, the rubber-banded pages of their draft paper threatened to rewrite cosmology textbooks. No grand announcement yet. The cautious wording of anomalous interactions and potential indications left room for alternate explanations. But the truth hummed through his bones. After decades of hunting the invisible, they might have finally felt dark matter flit through their grasp, elusive as a shadow glimpsed from the corner of the eye. It's there and gone between heartbeats. The universe had played its fugue, and for 47 miraculous minutes, they'd almost discerned the melody. The problem with infinity, they decided, as she rubbed her tired eyes, was how quickly it made a mockery of human arrogance. The holographic display before her shimmered with galaxies, each starry pinprick containing multitudes. Every wispy filament bridging voids so vast they defied comprehension. And yet, despite millennia of stargazing and centuries of increasingly precise instruments, the cosmos still guarded its deepest secrets behind layers of illusion. Tonight's anomaly glowed accusingly on the screen, a tendril of stars arcing between two dwarf galaxies like a bridge across an impossible abyss. The spectroscopic signatures matched perfectly, though the structures were separated by cosmic distances no known force could span. Javier leaned in, his reflection floating among the projected constellations as he whispered, "This violates every model. May switch to the new Rubin dataset." 3 galaxy clusters forming a precise equilateral triangle glared back at her. She zoomed out further, revealing more geometric anomalies of celestial architecture to ordered, the two interconnected, as if they'd stumbled upon some deeper blueprint hidden beneath the universe's skin. The data was overwhelming. Each new observation seemed to contradict the established understanding of cosmic structure. The universe, it appeared, was not the chaotic jumble of stars and galaxies they had always imagined. Instead, it was a finely woven tapestry with threads of dark matter and energy binding everything together in ways they were only beginning to comprehend. "Look at this," May said, pointing to a cluster of galaxies that seemed to be moving in unison, their velocities synchronized in a way that defied gravitational expectations. "They shouldn't be behaving like this. It's as if they're part of a larger system we can't see." Javier nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It's like we're uncovering a second draft of the universe, one where we missed entire paragraphs." The implications were staggering. If their models were wrong, if the universe was structured in ways they had yet to understand, then everything they thought they knew about cosmology was up for grabs. The Hubble constant discrepancies, the dark energy equations, even the very nature of dark matter, everything was suddenly in question. May felt a thrill of excitement mixed with trepidation. They were standing on the precipice of discovery, but the abyss below was filled with uncertainty. What if they were wrong? What if their interpretations led them down a path that only deepened the mystery? As the hours passed, May and Javier worked tirelessly, poring over the data, running simulations, and comparing their findings with existing theories. The control room buzzed with the energy of discovery, the air thick with anticipation. They were not just mapping the stars. They were charting the very fabric of reality itself. Late into the night, May took a break, stepping outside the observatory to clear her mind. The desert air was cool against her skin, and the sky stretched endlessly above, a canvas of stars twinkling like diamonds scattered across velvet. She felt a connection to the ancient astronomers who had gazed up at the same sky, wondering about the nature of the cosmos. In that moment, she understood the weight of their legacy. They had laid the groundwork for what she and her team were now attempting to unravel. The methods had changed, but the fundamental questions remained the same. What is the universe made of? How did it come to be? And, perhaps most importantly, what lies beyond the veil of what they could see? Returning to the control room, May found Javier hunched over his terminal, his eyes wide with excitement. "You need to see this," he said, pulling up a new visualization. The screen displayed a complex web of galaxies, their movements plotted in real time. "Look at the way they're interacting," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "Almost as if they're communicating with each other." Kay leaned closer, her heart racing. The data showed clusters of galaxies moving in synchronized patterns, their velocities and trajectories aligning in ways that suggested a hidden force at play. It was as if the universe was a grand symphony, each galaxy a note in a cosmic melody that they were only beginning to hear. This could change everything, May breathed, her mind racing with possibilities. If we can prove that these interactions are real, it could lead to a new understanding of dark matter and energy. Javier nodded, his excitement palpable. "We need to get this data out there. The world needs to see what we found." But as they prepared to publish their findings, a nagging doubt crept into May's mind. What if they were misinterpreting the data? What if their excitement was leading them to conclusions that were not supported by the evidence? The universe was a complex puzzle, and they were only beginning to piece together the edges. She knew that the scientific community would scrutinize their work, and any misstep could lead to ridicule or worse. Still, the thrill of discovery outweighed her fears. They were on the brink of something monumental, and she couldn't let hesitation hold them back as the days turned into weeks. May and Javier worked tirelessly to refine their analysis, collaborating with other researchers and sharing their findings with the broader scientific community. The response was overwhelming. Astrophysicists from around the world reached out, eager to discuss the implications of their work. Conferences were scheduled, papers were written, and the excitement of discovery rippled through the academic community like a shockwave. But with the excitement came scrutiny. Critics emerged, questioning their methods and interpretations. Some argued that the anomalies could be explained by known phenomena, while others suggested that their data was simply a statistical fluke. May felt the weight of the criticism, but she refused to back down. They had worked too hard and come too far to let doubt overshadow their discoveries. She and Javier continued to refine their models, addressing the criticisms head-on and presenting their findings with clarity and conviction. As the months passed, the conversation around their work evolved. What had begun as skepticism transformed into intrigue, and soon their findings sparked a new wave of research into the nature of dark matter and the structure of the universe. May found herself at the center of a burgeoning field, collaborating with theorists and experimentalists alike, all eager to explore the implications of their work. The universe was opening up before them, revealing layers of complexity they had only begun to understand. One evening, as May stood on the observatory's balcony, gazing up at the stars, she felt a profound sense of connection to the cosmos. The universe was vast and mysterious, but it was also a tapestry woven from the threads of countless stories of stars being born, galaxies colliding, and civilizations rising and falling. In that moment, she realized that their work was not just about uncovering the secrets of the universe. It was about participating in a grand narrative that spanned eons. They were the celestial cartographers, mapping the unknown and charting a course through the cosmos. As she turned to head back inside, a sense of purpose filled her. The journey was far from over, and the mysteries of the universe still beckoned. With each new discovery, they were not just uncovering the fabric of reality. They were weaving their own story into the tapestry of existence. And as long as there were stars to gaze upon and questions to ponder, May knew they would continue their quest, driven by the insatiable curiosity that had propelled humanity forward. Since the dawn of time, the universe was vast, but they were ready to explore its depths, one discovery at a time. The hum of the observatory was a familiar comfort as May settled into her chair, the glow of the monitors illuminating her face. In the dim room, the data streams flowed like a river of knowledge, each packet a potential revelation waiting to be unearthed. The excitement of discovery had transformed into a relentless pursuit. May found herself lost in the intricate dance of numbers and graphs. Weeks had turned into months, and the initial thrill of their findings had evolved into a deeper understanding of the universe's complexities. The anomalies they had uncovered were no longer just curiosities. They were pieces of a larger puzzle that hinted at the very nature of reality. May and her team had become the vanguard of a new era in cosmology, one that challenged the established paradigms and beckoned them to explore uncharted territories. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the desert landscape, May gathered her team for a meeting. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as they prepared to present their latest findings at an upcoming international conference. The stakes were high, and the scientific community was watching closely. "All right, everyone," May began, her voice steady but filled with enthusiasm. "We've made significant progress in refining our models. The data from the last few months has only strengthened our case for the existence of a previously unrecognized force shaping the structure of the universe." Javier leaned forward, his eyes bright with excitement. "The simulations show that these interactions between galaxies are not random. They follow a pattern that suggests a hidden framework, something we've yet to fully comprehend." May nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. "Exactly. If we can demonstrate that these interactions are consistent across multiple datasets, we could redefine our understanding of dark matter and energy. This could lead to a paradigm shift in cosmology." As they discussed their findings, May felt a sense of camaraderie with her team. Each member brought unique insights and perspectives, and together they were forging a path into the unknown. The challenges they faced were daunting. But the thrill of discovery fueled their determination. The conference arrived, and the auditorium buzzed with energy as scientists from around the world gathered to share their research. May stood backstage, her heart pounding in her chest. This was her moment to present their work to the world, to share the echoes of creation that had resonated through their data. As she stepped onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinded her, but she quickly focused on the audience before her. The faces of renowned astrophysicists, eager students, and curious minds filled the seats, all waiting to hear what she had to say. "Thank you for being here," May began, her voice steady despite the nerves. "Today, I want to share with you a journey through the cosmos that has revealed a hidden tapestry of connections between galaxies. One that challenges our understanding of the universe." With each slide, she unveiled their findings, the holographic projections, illuminating the auditorium with stunning visuals of galaxies interacting in ways that defied conventional wisdom. The audience leaned in, captivated by the beauty and complexity of the data. As she spoke, May felt the weight of her words. She was not just presenting numbers and graphs. She was sharing a vision of the universe that transcended the boundaries of human understanding. The echoes of creation resonated through her presentation, and she could sense the audience's growing excitement. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. May stepped back, her heart racing with exhilaration. She had shared their discoveries, and the response was overwhelming. Questions flooded in from the audience, each inquiry a testament to the intrigue their work had sparked. In the days that followed, the conference became a whirlwind of discussions, collaborations, and new ideas. May found herself at the center of a vibrant community of scientists, all eager to explore the implications of their findings. The conversations flowed like a river, each exchange deepening their understanding of the cosmos. But amid the excitement, May remained grounded. She knew that the journey was far from over. The universe still held countless mysteries, and their work was just the beginning. As she returned to the observatory, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The data continued to pour in, and with each new observation, they were peeling back the layers of reality. The hidden framework that connected galaxies was becoming clearer, and May was determined to uncover its secrets. One night, as she sat alone in the control room, she reviewed the latest data from the Rubin Observatory. The patterns were emerging more distinctly now, and she could almost hear the universe whispering its secrets. The interactions between galaxies were not just random events. They were echoes of creation, reverberating through time and space. May's fingers danced across the keyboard as she ran simulations, her mind racing with possibilities. What if these interactions were not merely the result of gravitational forces? What if they were influenced by something more profound, something that transcended the known laws of physics? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. The universe was a symphony, and they were only beginning to decipher its melody. As she delved deeper into the data, she felt a sense of connection to the cosmos, as if she were part of something much larger than herself. Days turned into nights, and the observatory became her sanctuary. The stars outside twinkled like distant memories, each one a reminder of the vastness of the universe. May found solace in the solitude, her mind free to wander through the realms of possibility. Then, one fateful evening, as she reviewed the latest findings, a breakthrough occurred. The data revealed a correlation between the galaxy interactions and the cosmic microwave background radiation, an echo of the universe's infancy. It was as if they had stumbled upon a hidden thread that wove together the fabric of existence. Her heart raced, and she realized the implications. If they could establish a connection between these interactions and the early universe, it could provide insights into the very nature of dark matter and energy. The echoes of creation were becoming clearer, and May felt a surge of excitement. She gathered her team, her voice filled with urgency. We need to analyze this correlation further. If we can prove that these interactions are linked to the cosmic microwave background, it could revolutionize our understanding of the universe. Javier's eyes widened with excitement. This could be the key to unlocking the mysteries of dark matter. As they delved into the analysis, the atmosphere in the control room crackled with energy. The team worked tirelessly, fueled by the thrill of discovery and the promise of new knowledge. They were on the brink of something monumental, and the universe was waiting to reveal its secrets. Weeks passed, and the data continued to unfold like a cosmic tapestry. The connections between galaxies deepened, and the echoes of creation resonated. Through their findings, they felt a sense of purpose driving her forward, a determination to uncover the truth that lay hidden in the stars. Finally, the moment arrived. They had gathered enough evidence to present their findings to the scientific community. The anticipation was palpable as May prepared for another conference, her heart racing with excitement and nerves as she stood before the audience once more. She felt a sense of connection to the countless astronomers who had come before her. They were all part of the same quest for knowledge, driven by the desire to understand the universe and their place within it. Today, I want to share with you a revelation. May began, her voice steady and filled with conviction. We have uncovered a connection between galaxy interactions and the cosmic microwave background radiation, suggesting a hidden framework that shapes the very fabric of our universe. The audience erupted in applause, and May felt a surge of pride. They were not just presenting data. They were sharing a vision of the cosmos that transcended the boundaries of human understanding. The echoes of creation were resonating through the auditorium, and she could sense the excitement building among her peers as the questions poured in. May felt a renewed sense of purpose. The universe was vast and mysterious, but they were ready to explore its depths, one discovery at a time. The journey was far from over, and the echoes of creation would continue to guide them as they ventured into the unknown. In that moment, May knew that they were not just celestial cartographers. They were explorers of the cosmos, charting a course through the mysteries of existence. And as long as there were stars to gaze upon and questions to ponder, they would continue their quest, driven by the insatiable curiosity that had propelled humanity forwards since the dawn of time. The night shift at the Kamioka Observatory stretched long and silent. The only sound, the faint hum of the Super Kamiokande detectors, photomultipliers. Deep underground, Dr. Eleanor Sato sat hunched over her monitors, her reflection ghostly in the darkened screens. The data stream showed the usual dance of cosmic rays, until it didn't. At 2:17 JST, a neutrino burst hit. It's not the expected gentle drizzle of particles from deep space, but a torrential downpour that sent every sensor into overload. Lenore's fingers flew across the keyboard, isolating the signal's origin. The computer spat out coordinates that made her blood run cold. Impossible, she whispered. The particles hadn't come from some distant supernova or active galactic nucleus. They appeared to originate from a patch of empty space just beyond Pluto's orbit, and they were traveling backwards through time. The alert went out immediately. Within hours, telescopes around the world and in orbits swiveled toward the anomaly. The Hubble's replacement, the Roman telescope, captured the first visual, a shimmering discontinuity in spacetime, hovering at the solar system's edge like a soap bubble, threatening to pop. Eleanor's mentor, legendary Dr. Chen, arrived disheveled and wild-eyed. "Do you realize what this is?" he demanded, jabbing a finger at the spectrograph readings. "That's no natural phenomenon." The particle signatures matched theoretical traversable wormhole models perfectly. They watched in stunned silence as the phenomenon pulsed gently, emitting radiation in perfect Fibonacci sequences. The entire astronomy community held its breath, wondering with equal parts terror and awe if this was first contact, a glitch in reality, or something beyond human understanding. At dawn, the anomaly vanished as suddenly as it appeared. The only proof it had existed at all were the neutrino tracks, frozen in supercase detection's medium, and the unshakable certainty in Eleanor's bones that humanity had just glimpsed beyond the final horizon of known physics into something infinitely stranger. 16. The echo chamber, 1,300 words. The neutrino event should have faded into obscurity, another cosmic anomaly filed away with fast radio bursts and the wow signal. But the Fibonacci echoes lingered in the data like afterimages burned into Dr. Eleanor Sato's retinas. 3 months after the solar system's edge shimmered with impossible physics, she knelt in the bunker-deep silence of Kamioka's auxiliary lab, rewinding the particle tracks again and again. The pattern wasn't random. It converged. These backtracing vectors. ... Eleanor muttered, adjusting her headset. Her breath fogged in the chilled air as she isolated the cascading neutrino paths. Each particle, upon reappearing in the detector, seemed to retrace its own timeline, microscopic echoes of a single, impossible moment, looping endlessly through spacetime. The Super K computers, overwhelmed, had missed it entirely. She called Chen at the 30-meter telescope in Hawaii, where he'd repositioned instruments toward Pluto's former coordinates. "It's not just where they came from," she said. "It's how they faded." The data streams synchronized in real time. As dawn broke over Mauna Kea, Jen's team captured the first visual evidence of Eleanor's theory: residual distortions flickering at the solar system's rim. Not light, not matter, but subtle warps in space-time itself, vibrating at precise intervals. The universe, it seemed, was holding its breath. By noon, Gravitational Wave Observatory on Earth reported matching tremors. Even LIGO's ultra-sensitive interferometers quivered with a phantom pulse, though no cosmic collision explained it. Theorists frantically modeled white holes, quantum entanglement on macroscopic scales, even holographic universe projections. No equations fit. Then the Morse code began, not from space, from Earth, from decommissioned Cold War-era radio dishes in Siberia. Their rusted steel skeletons, inexplicably powering up to broadcast the same Fibonacci sequence backward. The signal matched neutrino echoes to 19 decimals. Eleanor understood before the Pentagon's classified alert reached her desk. This wasn't first contact. It was an answering machine. Some experiment, perhaps mankind's own, had punched through dimensions long ago. And now, after centuries adrift in the cosmic dark, its echo had finally come home. The Siberian transmission led to an abandoned Soviet bunker buried beneath 200 feet of permafrost. Dr. Dmitry Volkov's Geiger counter screamed the moment they breached the containment door. Not from radiation, but from neutrino fluxes identical to the Kamioka event. Dmitry whispered. His headlamp illuminated a cavernous chamber where decades of ice encased a towering apparatus, part particle collider, part radio transmitter. Frozen cables snaked toward a central sphere covered in Cyrillic warnings. Project Echo. The team thawed the control consoles just enough to extract crumbling logbooks. The dates stopped abruptly in 1982. Eleanor's hands shook as she translated the final entry. The Americans cannot know. When we fired the Tom device yesterday, Comrade Petrov swears the target monitor displayed mountains that were not there. Then Sergeant Kuznetsov, he remembers the test never happening at all. The machine is eating time itself. We are dismantling. Gunshot hole pierced the last page. Every lab studying the phenomenon would later report the same creeping dread. Equipment would activate spontaneously. Research teams developed shared false memories of non-existent tests. Most chilling of all, identical handwritten notes appeared in sealed logbooks worldwide, all bearing the same timestamp from that vanished Soviet experiment. The universe, it seemed, was stitching itself around the anomaly. when Chen collapsed. At Mauna Kea, mumbling about the inverted signal, doctors found temporal lobe damage matching extreme déjà vu. His last coherent words chilled Eleanor to the bone. We've done this before. We've always done this. The loop is older than we are. The North Atlantic heaved like a sleeping giant beneath the Warrior d'Enchant. The converted oil rig, CSS Nautilus VII, groaned against its moorings as midnight approached. Marine biologist Dr. Lena Shu gripped the rain-slick railing, her face stinging with salt spray as she stared at the glowing monitors inside the research cabin. The hydrophone array's normally steady green waveforms had spiked into a frenzy half an hour ago. Pulses of infrasound, matching the neutrino echoes from Kamioka with impossible precision, but originating from 7 miles below in the Mariana Trench. We've got visual confirmation, called Commander Yusuf Hassan from the control room, his voice crackling through Lena's headset. The submersible Abyss Watcher had reached the trench floor, its spotlights illuminating swirling sediment like a slow-motion snowstorm. Within this cloud pulsed something far stranger: rhythmic disturbances in the water itself, creating geometric ripples that held their Fibonacci spiral shapes for seconds before dissolving. Lena's hands trembled as she adjusted her headset. Yusuf, are you seeing this thermal signature? The sub-scans showed the water temperature fluctuated exactly 0.618 degrees Celsius with each pulse sequence, the golden ratio, manifested through thermodynamics. Before Yusuf could respond, the Abyss Watcher's cameras captured something metallic, glinting through the swirling silt. The sub's robotic arms cleared away centuries of accumulated sediment to reveal a perfect sphere about 2 meters in diameter. Its mirror-like surface reflecting distorted images of the submersible's mechanical claws. Strange markings spiraled across its surface, not carved but seemingly grown into the metal-like tree rings, a snow rock formation. Yusuf breathed as the sphere's surface suddenly shimmered like liquid mercury. Before their eyes, it reshaped itself into perfect platonic solids, first an octahedron, then dodecahedron, icosahedron, transitioning through each form in Fibonacci sequence. Before returning to spherical, Lena's clipboard clattered to the floor. It's reacting to us, as if hearing her words. The sphere projected a holographic display into the water itself, an exact replica of the Pioneer Plaque's human silhouettes, except the figures now stood beside a perfect double helix with specific base pairs highlighted in gold. Q. The projection morphed into an image of JWST's segmented mirror. Then, finally, into a symbol resembling both the DNA helix and galaxy spiral combined. That's no alien artifact, said engineer Raj Patel over the comms, voice hushed with awe. It's speaking in human symbols. It's our own scientific landmarks. The sphere suddenly contracted into itself like a dying star, compacting to the size of a basketball while maintaining all its mass. It emitted one final pulse, this time emitting visible light in the exact spectrum of the cosmic microwave background radiation before dissolving to a cloud of nanoscopic particles that drifted away on deep ocean currents. Analysis of water samples revealed the shocking truth. The sphere's metallic surface had actually been composed of engineered diatoms, microscopic sea creatures modified into living circuitry. The entire structure was biological technology that had perhaps waited millennia in the trench's crushing darkness for someone to find it. Back on the rig's lab, spectral analysis of captured particles matched no known element on Earth's periodic table, though they bore eerie similarities to the neutrino echoes detected at Kamioka. When exposed to intense magnetic fields, the particles arranged themselves into quantum bits, storing petabytes of information encoded in, unsurprisingly, by now Fibonacci sequences. Lena spent 3 sleepless nights poring over the data with colleagues from Woods Hole to Tokyo University. The conclusion was inescapable. Whatever had created the sphere had used humanity's own scientific and cultural landmarks as a Rosetta Stone, communicating across time in a language of mathematics and symbolism. But why show us DNA? Lena asked during the final debriefing, circling that particularly haunting image. And why highlight specifically these base pairs? Geneticist Dr. Chen Li zoomed in until individual nucleotides resolved on the screens. These sequences code for human consciousness-related proteins. It's the markers for what makes us us. A terrible realization settled over Lena. The sphere wasn't just a message, it was a mirror. One that reflected humanity's past, present, and potential future back at them in perfect golden ratios. As the research vessel turned back to Wardport, she stood on deck, watching sunset paint the waves gold, and tried to comprehend an intelligence that could encode entire worldviews in the spin of electrons. The sphere had laid bare an uncomfortable truth that all human science and art might just be the opening notes of an infinite symphony. Playing across dimensions, they were only beginning to sense. Somewhere in the vast dark, other hands may be human, maybe something far stranger were still composing. And the music had only just begun. The silence of deep space weighed heavier than Commander Elias Vaughn had anticipated. Floating in the observation blister of the Vespera, he watched Earth shrink to a pale blue dot behind them, while the probe's quantum antenna array unfolded like silver petals ahead. Nearly 3 decades had passed since the Mariana Trench sphere dissolved into its primordial components. 3 decades of gradually assembling the pieces of this cosmic puzzle. It's kin locked, announced Dr. Priya Desai from her station. The neutrino detector flared to life, tracing the Fibonacci pulses back to their origin point beyond the Kuiper belt. Acquisition in 3. The probe's final transmission arrived not as data packets, but as raw sensory experience. One moment Elias was strapped into a seat, so the next, his consciousness expanded to encompass the solar system in its entirety. Not as a collection of orbiting bodies, but as seamless topological geometry. Planets became harmonic nodes in a resonating, three-dimensional waveform. Their orbits perfect golden spirals winding through compressed space-time. It's a Klein bottle, breathed Priya, her voice echoing strangely as she interpreted the cosmic scale image flooding their minds. The entire solar system contained within a single recursive surface. The impossible dated stamp in the metadata confirmed their deepest suspicions. 15 billion years in the future. Far beyond the heat death of the universe as current physics predicted it. Astrobiologist Dr. Marcus Ray gripped his console as revelation struck. The sphere in the trench wasn't alien. It was human, from so far forward in time that they folded reality itself. The vision dissolved as abruptly as it came, leaving the crew gasping in their seats. But the true shock came from the probe's final act, deploying its payload of engineered tardigrades encoded with humanity's complete genetic blueprint. The microscopic creatures formed themselves into perfect Fibonacci spirals in the vacuum, their crystalline structures catching the distant sunlight like diamonds before scattering outward in all directions at relativistic speeds. Elias watched the propulsion telemetry with dawning understanding. The particles weren't traveling through space. They tunneled quantum mechanically across folded dimensions, simultaneously appearing at multiple points in space-time. Some would reach distant galaxies. Others would circle back to Earth at different eras. All carried the same encoded message. This is what we were. This is what we became. The cosmic background radiation fluctuated subtly around them, its microwave whisper resolving into the same Fibonacci sequence that had haunted humanity's scientific discoveries for centuries. The universe itself was singing in recursive harmonies, its melody written in spiral galaxies and DNA helices and the very fringes of human perception. On the observation deck, Elias removed his headset and let the static wash over him, not random noise, but the residue of infinite echoes traversing the folded manifold of existence. His reflection in the viewport showed wrinkles not present when the mission began years ago. But his eyes still held the same wonder he'd felt staring at the stars as a child. Perhaps that was the message's deepest meaning. That curiosity itself formed the fundamental constant binding all iterations of intelligence across dimensions. The scientists at Kamioka studying neutrino ghosts, the engineers deciphering Mariana's sphere, even ancient Babylonians tracking Venus, all were participants in the same infinite conversation. The Vespera turned back toward Earth as its systems powered down, mission complete. Somewhere ahead, children yet unborn would grow up seeing Fibonacci sequences in seashells in spiral galaxies without understanding why the pattern felt like home. The cycle would continue, discoveries made, lost, and rediscovered across millennia. Each revelation a reflection of truths too vast for any single era to comprehend. Elias pressed his palm against the cold glass, imagining it might vibrate with distant echoes. The universe owed them no explanations, no tidy endings, only the eternal opportunity to keep listening to the spaces between stars. The silence between heartbeats, the quiet moments when reality itself seemed to pause and whisper, "You are the echo, and the echo is you." The universe never stops talking. It murmurs in starlight, hums in the static between radio stations, trembles in the invisible wake of colliding black holes. It's from the first time a human looked up at the night sky and wondered, to the moment our probes finally breached the solar system's edge. The cosmos has been whispering secrets layer upon layer, fractal revelations folded into galaxies and DNA and the quiet pulse of neutrinos. But now we know the truth. We were never the listeners. We were the message. The Fibonacci sequences in sunflowers, the spirals of distant nebulae, the echoes of particles, dancing backward through time, all of them letters in a single word written across dimensions. A word we have been decoding even as we unknowingly helped draft it. The Mariana Trench sphere, the Kamioka echoes, Klein bottle future, where our solar system folds itself into a paradox. These were not objects passing through time, but fragments of a language spoken by an intelligence so vast, so ancient, that it could only converse with us by encoding itself into our own discoveries. We built telescopes to map the stars, only to find they mapped our minds in return. We hunted for alien signals, only to receive back our own code from the future, spliced into our atoms, written into the golden ratios of existence itself. Did we discover mathematics, or did mathematics discover us? The answer doesn't matter. Only the pattern remains, and the pattern is beautiful. So now, as the last probes power down and the observatories fall silent, there is nothing left to do but watch the stars, not with instruments or equations, but with the quiet certainty of those who finally know they are part of something infinite. We are the universe learning its own name, and the song is never over, only paused, waiting for the next verse to begin. Good night.